How do you pray for somebody who you feel has really, really harmed you?
So what? It's easy to sit there with the anger and the toxicity and the bitterness. That's easy.
In England, there is growing backlash and excitement for what's shaping up to be a transatlantic fight over Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Sit down with Oprah Winfrey.
Meghan Markle believes she was returning to a place of safety, where she had previously spoken her mind, sparked a media frenzy, and changed the course of history to her advantage. Meghan gained compassion, media attention, and a whole new level of fame with her 2021 interview with Oprah, which was more than simply an interview. She thus anticipated a yes when she made a follow-up pitch, certain that Oprah would be prepared to give her the microphone once again. Instead, however, she received a firm no, and not just any no. It came directly from Oprah. Meghan's whole PR strategy has been rocked by that one rejection. Behind the scenes, it was meant to be her big break, a second primetime sit-down that would let her start over after 2 difficult years of failed ventures, PR blunders, and a public that was gradually losing interest in her.
That will be seen right here on CBS. In an apparent siding with the royal family, the British media are suggesting it's insensitive to air such an explosive interview while Prince is outside Buckingham Palace with the very latest.
I wasn't even allowed to have that conversation with you personally, right? There had to be people from the comments sitting there. Everything was...
There were other people in...
That information came direct from Meghan's ex-husband, Trevor Engelson, via an intermediary. And obviously Trevor Engelson is a very successful TV producer. He now has his own family. He's very happy. He hasn't spoken on the record.
But time and schedule weren't the only factors in Oprah's rejection. The statement that even Meghan's closest media friends were no longer prepared to risk their reputation on her brand was a loud and purposeful retraction. The consequences? Brutal. People pay attention when someone like Oprah takes a break. In addition to hosting chat shows, she is a gatekeeper, a validator, and the kind of person whose assistance may unlock doors that would otherwise remain locked. However, that door has now been shut, leaving Meghan to stand in the corridor and attempt to determine what went wrong. This is even more damaging since Oprah has made empathy, atonement, and second chances the cornerstones of her business. Having handled contentious tales for a living, she has no fear of them. However, the calculation has shifted in the case of Meghan. Oprah is turning away from the danger, not simply from another time in the news. The first interview caused a great deal of controversy. Millions of people watched and made judgments. Meghan received international attention as a result, but there were also fact checks, criticism, and accusations that certain elements of the narrative were untrue.
Several attempts to see his grandmother.
Yes, and I think that was such an important story to be shared last night. In the process of trying to edit this 3 hours and 20 minutes down to a question to be answered here at the end of this show will be, why did they leave? And I think the stories about being blindsiding the Queen were very, very damaging to them and also hurtful because they understood very clearly that they're following many months of conversations and more recent discussions, I am pleased that together we have found constructive and supportive way forward for my grandson and his family. So the Queen on January 18th actually said that there'd been months of conversation.
When she sees them, and it seems to come back to something that Meghan pointed out early, that there's the family and then there's the institution. And you were constantly trying to probe the difference between the two. What did you take away from that?
I took away from that there are, as Harry just indicated, there are peoples.
Oprah took the risk, considered the optics, and said no, as anybody would do to preserve a decades-long career. Meghan was really affected by that no. Insiders claim that she was not just disappointed, but also incensed. It was treachery to her. The system as a whole, not just Oprah, used to treat her like queen even after she relinquished the title. The problem is that perception is crucial in Hollywood. Meghan used to have a magnetic charm. Cameras were implied by her name on a guest list. Sales increased when her face appeared on a magazine cover. The stats, however, are presenting a different tale these days. There's a halt in projects. Offers are dwindling. People aren't paying as much attention as they once did, and the industry quickly retreats as the excitement begins to fade. The novelty is gone, one insider said plainly. That's harsh, but sentiments like that spread quickly in Hollywood. The foundation of Meghan's whole post-royal brand has been narrative control, using slick production and well-timed storytelling to tell her tale her way. However, the narrative begins to slide out of your grasp when Oprah, your largest megaphone, refuses to give you the microphone. And the media isn't the only one retreating. When a name begins to be associated with danger, stylists, producers, and publicists begin to consider their choices. Nobody likes to be associated with a failing celebrity, particularly when doing so may harm their own reputation. Once a highly sought-after visitor, Meghan now says maybe we'll see. Let's be sure. In a community where what others want from you is more important than who you are, that is a disturbing transition. Oprah's rejection wasn't the first time the fissures appeared. They had been subtly developing for some time. The foundation of Meghan's post-royal career was momentum, and for a while, everything she touched made headlines. The Spotify agreement caused a stir. The Netflix documentary series caused a stir. Like a royal telegram, every public appearance was scrutinized. However, enthusiasm is brittle, and in the entertainment sector, the hard issue of what's really functioning arises when the buzz subsides. Spotify was intended to be a long-term success, a $1 million partnership that was actually meant to highlight Meghan's voice. But after a moment of enthusiasm, there was stillness. Only a few episodes were shown. The project was plagued with mediocre reviews, variable material, and production delays. The collaboration eventually dissolved completely. The message was obvious when Spotify severed ties. The platform will move on if the audience doesn't bite. Then the Netflix issues arose. Although the docuseries attracted viewers, Meghan didn't get the long-term success she had hoped for. It was criticized for rehashing the royal separation without providing much fresh insight and for relying too much on old grudges.
I was as surprised by the bombshell as everybody else. I was doing an interview to offer them a platform to tell their story about why they left. And that was my number one intention, was just clarity on why did you leave? And so some of the things that were revealed in that interview came as a surprise to me. And those surprises are now referred to as bombshell. But I didn't set out to do a bombshell interview. I set out to do an interview, have a conversation that would allow them to tell their story.
What do you say?
I do not get into people's family matters. And everybody who has experienced some challenges in their families with in-laws or brothers or sisters knows how difficult some of those situations can be. And I'm sure that, for the royal family, it's no different. And nobody consults me about their family business.
The audience started to feel as if they had heard it all before. For someone attempting to create a brand that looks to the future, it is risky ground. If the plot doesn't change, the novelty of a royal gone rogue only gets you so far. Even worse, Meghan continues to adhere to her initial plan, which was that she could control the discussion with the correct interviewer, platform, and lighting. However, viewers are now more astute. They recall the paradoxes, the unresolved issues, and the inconsistencies from previous interviews. Every new meeting isn't a start. The fire has been rekindled. Furthermore, Oprah had no intention of burning her hands again. Meghan's camp has been rushing behind the scenes. According to insiders, in an effort to maintain the brand, she has been actively pushing new content ideas, including documentaries, television shows, and even branded items. However, Hollywood isn't purchasing as much as it once did. Leaders are cautious. Focus groups don't find it impressive. The idea that the Meghan Markle brand may have burned too quickly and peaked too early is becoming more and more prevalent. Once eager to collaborate with Hillary, even public relations specialists are now reconsidering. According to reports, a well-known agency turned down a possible transaction